Washington turmoil is keeping a bid under gold. The metal now at session highs as the news came out that Sean Spicer resigned as the White House press secretary. August gold now ending the week up 2% at $12.53 an ounce. Joining us from Las Vegas today, where he's a speaker at the Freedom Fest conference, is Peter Schiff, CEO of Euro Pacific Capital. Peter, good to see you. Wish I was there with you guys.
Yeah, it's a great conference. I don't know if you ever get a chance to come here to Las Vegas in the summer. There's normally not a reason to be in Las Vegas in July, but the Freedom Fest conference is worth the trip.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about it in a bit. I've covered it for many years. Unfortunately, can't be there this year. But let's talk about the turmoil in the Trump administration here. What are your thoughts on the Spicer exit?
Well, I guess Saturday Night Live is going to have to come up with some other skits. I wonder if they're going to get somebody to play Anthony Scaramucci. But Trump is going to have a lot of problems. He inherited a disaster of an economy from Obama. The problem is he pretended that the economy was great. He's now, claiming ownership of this economy. He's put his brand on the stock market. So I think he's basically taking over a sinking ship. He should have been more forthright after the election. He should have stayed on the message that candidate Trump. He was very critical of the phony economic numbers. He was calling the stock market a bubble. He should have continued that. Now he's taken the bait. But it's not just gold going up. The dollar's down. In fact, the dollar's lost more than 10% of its value since early January. It's closing the week at a new low for the year. Chart looks horrible on the dollar. I think it's going a lot lower. You had a huge, very crowded trade. Everybody was long the dollar coming into the year. They were so enthusiastic about it. There were even cover stories written about the mighty dollar. That was the top. We're going a lot lower, and that generally means gold's going a lot higher. In fact, I'm surprised that gold isn't already higher. I think it's been lagging, but I think it's got a lot of lost ground to make up for. Just wondering what the catalyst is going to be, but I do think it's going a lot higher.
Okay, well, we are ending the week up 2%. Many saying we put in the bottom last week. What are you doing with it at these levels? And you say we're headed higher. I know you've been saying that for a long time, but where are we going?
Well, higher. We had a big washout in silver too, like a week or two ago. The silver price went down about $15. It's almost back up to 17, not quite, but I think we had a big sell order. We had a big special on silver. I got really excited about it when it got down near $15. And I still think silver is a great buy here. But, what is going to propel it higher? Hard to say. There's so many different catalysts that could do it. But, I think we got to get gold out of this trading range. It's got to get, well above 1,300 or above 1,350. I think right now at, 1,250-ish, people just look at it and it's like, well, it hasn't got anywhere. It's just where it's been. So I think it really has to break decisively out of this overhead resistance. And then I think a lot of people are going to start buying it.
Well, if we compare it to equities here, in the short term, equities are still really outshining the yellow metal. A study from The Telegraph showed that since last year's Brexit vote, a portfolio with only 5% exposure in gold is up 32%, beating a 50% exposure, which is up 17%.
Yeah, last year gold did really well. Gold stocks were my best performers last year. This year they're my worst performers. Even though they're up, they're not up as much as my non-gold stocks. I manage 5 mutual funds. And the worst performer on the year is the gold fund. Even my bond fund is beating my gold fund. But I don't think that's good. I think that's going to change. Right now, year to date, it's my emerging market fund that is the star performer. But, I do think by the end of the year, I think gold is going to overtake it. I think it's going to have a strong finish to the year. Last year, gold had a weak finish because everybody got excited about Trump. The dollar rallied on Trump. And, I said at the time, I thought that was a head fake, that the Trump honeymoon wouldn't last. And, it's obviously it's already over. And I think that you're going to start to see a lot of disappointment. A lot of people who are enthusiastic about Trump making America great again. I think they're going to start, capitulating on those hopes because, again, I'm not blaming this thing on Trump. He inherited a disaster. he's not making it better. But in order to make it better, things have to get a lot worse first. And no politician wants to acknowledge that. That's why we can't get rid of Obamacare, because no one wants to tell the truth. No one wants to tell the American public there's no free lunch. All the Republicans want to do is put their brand on the free lunch, but they don't want to take it away.
Peter, I interviewed Jim Rogers earlier this week, who's also a panelist with you at Freedom Fest. You know, and when I asked him what his message to attendees is he said, well, be careful, and that we will see the worst financial crisis in his lifetime. Is your message as gloomy?
Yeah, I mean, look, you know, we have the same opinion or the same conclusion. The only disagreement that Jim and I had this morning was that even though Jim thinks the dollar is going to ultimately collapse, he still thinks it's going to rise first. He thinks this next crisis, that's going to be worse than the financial crisis, will once again cause people to buy the dollar. And that's about the only thing I disagree with. I think the dollar rally is over. I think the dollar rallied on anticipation of rate normalization, of a shrinking balance sheet. I think when the Fed has to go back to QE and cut rates, I think that's it for the dollar. I think the dollar had its last hurrah, and I hope Jim is smart enough to get rid of his dollars before they completely collapse, because he said he's holding on to a lot of dollars, and it's only because he thinks that the euro and the yen could be even worse in the short run. But I don't. Look at the dollar against the euro. The dollar is very weak this year against the euro. It's been weak against the yen. I mean, the yen had a bit of a pullback recently, but that's been reversed. Right. So no, look, I mean, I don't like the euro or the yen that much myself. I just don't think they're as bad as the dollar. But, you know, when I invest, the world is not just those three currencies. There's a lot of currencies that you can own. So you could be out of all three of those currencies. And there's a lot of currencies that you can own that are not nearly as bad. But that's why I like gold, because it's not a currency. Gold is real money. Currencies are just substitutes for money. Gold is the real deal. And even if people aren't using it today as money, they will eventually. I mean, the world's been on the gold standard for a long time. Every once in a while we go off it, and then there's a disaster and we get back on, and that's coming. And, you know, with the internet age, I mean, it's easier now to be on a gold standard than ever before. I think gold works better as money today than it's ever worked in human history, and it's worked very well in the past, and it's going to work even better in the future.
Peter Schiff, thanks so much for joining us from Las Vegas, from the Freedom Press Conference. Thank you.
Sure.
And thanks for watching this edition of Kitco's Gold Report. We'll be back next week.